Thank you. I'm also a member of the Juvenile Welfare Board in Pinellas County, so some of this information crosses over into the public defender world. I'll be as brief as I can. We are the only circuit that's funded for what's called crossover. Crossover is the representation of children who are in the delinquency realm of the juvenile court who are also dependent. We've been in there now over 2 years, and it's been quite an eye-opening experience for me. We had always just been doing delinquency. And dealing with the crossover lawyers and talking to them about this medication issue, I think their opinions will mirror what I believe that you all have already heard. That is, many of these children are medicated for, I don't want to say discipline, but control issues as opposed to true medical issues. That is that they act out, they hit, and many of these kids have been moved many times. And in the statistics that we get from Eckerd EYA, we get those breakdowns of the number of movements of a child in a year. And once you get past 2, almost every single one of those children is on psychotropics. Our lawyer's viewpoint on that is that they are trying to medicate them to just have them more responsive, more controllable in the environments that they're in, as opposed to going to the underlying issues that our lawyers believe is there, which is a lot of anger. And we keep stressing the fact that with these children, there's nowhere else in the judicial system that a victim is treated the way these children are. If they're abused and neglected, they get yanked out of the home. They're angry, they're scared, they have problems with the foster home, they go to another place, they have problems. That instead of addressing the core issue of what's caused these children to act out, they medicate them. So I don't think that's something new that y'all have heard, but that does seem to be the consistent issue. And when we discuss it at JWB we have one of the UFC judges, the Unified Family Court judges, that's her initial thing. That once she sees a child moved more than twice, she says that invariably that child is medicated. Medicated for control issues, and that was Judge Sullivan. In talking again with the lawyers and going over this, one of the problems they see are the children who are moved frequently do not have a consistent continuum of care. That they may move from one area, because a lot of our children are actually in Hillsborough. When they move, they get a different case manager who gives them a different medication or an additional medication, so that no one has really reviewed the full record, or the full record doesn't exist, of what all this child has actually been on and has now been put on. So they may be on 3 or 4 medications, but the doctor's only told about one, or the doctor's only inquired about one. So they were really concerned about the continuum of care being consistent and that the records being up to date, so that when they are taken to a different doctor in a different locale, that doctor knows exactly what's going on with this child. So,
and if I could, to make sure I understand, we're talking about move from county to county?
Yes, or even North County to South County. I mean, in Pinellas, that would be a big issue. Moving from Tarpon Springs down to St. Peter to Gulfport or something would be a big move. They would not go back to the doctor in North County.
So it's another placement.
For the younger children, you know, we are somewhat skeptical, I say we, myself and the lawyers, about the number of ADHD children that seem to appear. We are concerned and a bit cynical about, are there really that many, or is this an excuse to medicate so the child, one lawyer called it zombified. And so we have that. The other issue, and I'll be in conclusion, the other issue that I did not know how to respond to was, we have some young people who are like 13 or 14 who have been medicated since they were like 4. And they come to our lawyer and they say, I would like to know what it would be like if I did not take these medications. And I think that's a very legitimate question from the child. And I don't know how to answer that. I mean, to me, it's really a very involved medical issue and a family issue. But, you know, we have seen people in the past, and particularly in our Baker Act issues, that come off of medications and do fine. We also, of course, see the people who go off their medications and do very poorly. So I don't know what the balance is there or how you answer that, but I think that's a legitimate question for a 14-year-old that's been medicated in foster care forever. What would I be like if I wasn't medicated? We found, or the Eckerd presented, that an extremely large number of the foster children on psychotropics did not have proper documentation in their files. Some were just a phone call supposedly saying that there was consent, things of that nature. So we've had a large number of court hearings about the psychotropic medications, many of which have to be continued repeatedly because the doctors will not cooperate. So it would seem to me that if you're paying a doctor and then he doesn't want to cooperate, you get another doctor. And I think that's kind of the responsibility of either the department or the case manager. But I was surprised, and Eckerd got up and said this at the last JWB meeting. One of the problems they've been having in compliance is the doctors just won't cooperate. They don't want to sign the documents. They don't want to write. There's a form, I guess, that Eckerd had, and the doctors just won't complete it. Well, get another doctor. I mean, that is a concern, and that's a side issue, of course. But I think the department has kind of the responsibility to make sure that the doctors are on board with what we want to do with these children. Dependency was a real eye-opener for me. I mean, I've been doing this 34 years. I did not know we treated these children so poorly. I had no idea that these children, and again, they're victims. You know, they've been abused, neglected, or abandoned, and we're treating them like they're at fault. You know, and I'm used to that in the delinquency realm or the criminal realm, but not when, you know, an abused, neglected, or abandoned child's there. But I think that's the primary thing. And you know, it's a lot of things. The law is fine. It's just that nobody's following it or implementing it right.
We have heard suggested, and it's just opinion, that schools want children medicated for control.
I have no doubt about that at all. Not everyone, but I think it's the same thing in the foster parents want the kids medicated for control sometimes where it may not be truly justified.
Anything we can do about it?
I think we got to go into the schools again and say, look, you know, we had the issue with the zero tolerance in the special ed schools. Two emotionally handicapped kids push each other in 5th grade, and they send both of them out to the detention center. Wow. You know, to me, that's a principal and an SRO problem. That should be resolved at the school. But we don't have people doing that. We have one SED school or one special ed school that sends a ton of kids. Another one with the, you know, the North County one with a different principal, we don't see any. So you know it's not the law that's the problem, it's who's implementing the procedures. And I think that's clearly in the school. I hear stories of there's nurses in school that their sole job is to give out the medication to the kids, as opposed to what we grew up with a school nurse doing. So I think it's an issue.
I don't understand nurse giving out meds. It's different if I have a prescription and the family asks the school nurse to help with the medication during the day. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. I don't think the child's allowed to keep their pills on them through the day because they just hand
So
them
is
out.
that what you're talking about? Right. Is what's there? So what's the problem with that?
Well, to me, that means there's too much medication going on in the school.
Does anybody know, I've heard it said that schools get extra money for children with medication. Does anybody know that?
I don't know.
Well, I know what I've been told. I've been told that the parents get more money and are entitled to additional resources if their child is declared SED.